Hello and welcome to episode 115 of the Wisdom from the Akasha podcast. My name is Suzie, I'm your host, and I'm an Akashic Records teacher and practitioner. Today, I want to talk about raising your vibration. This is obviously one of those big topics that gets discussed in the spiritual community all of the time. And the first thing I want to do is I want to ask you just to maybe consider, rather than raising the vibration, which is an active process, as in you have to do things for it to happen, try to change that perspective into raising your vibration or increasing your level of consciousness or expanding your level of awareness is actually about letting things go rather than it is adding more in. So you are an individualized fractal of source consciousness, and you as an individualized fractal of source consciousness have chosen to come into an earth incarnation, a physical incarnation. And when you're choosing a physical incarnation, you're choosing to come into limitation. You're choosing to come into the illusion of duality and the illusion of separation. Now, because of that choice of coming into incarnation, there's various different things that you choose before you come in. For example, you choose to be born into a specific ancestral line, and that specific ancestral line will have their own wounds, their own traumas, and also their own gifts and skills. And because you've chosen to be born into that specific ancestral line, you're going to experience certain programming and certain conditioning as you grow up. You also choose a certain society to be born into, and of course that comes with its own programming and conditioning. Going through a schooling system is going to come with its own programming and conditioning. You are born into a specific physical form. Every physical form is individual and unique, and therefore it needs to be understood in an individual and unique way. You also, prior to coming into an incarnation, choose certain lessons, certain situations, certain relationships that you want to experience while you're here in this physical reality. This is something we explore a lot in the Akashic Records, those choices that we've made and understanding things from that objective soul level perspective. So understanding why you as a soul would have chosen to experience certain things, certain difficulties. The soul is interested in evolution and growth. And when we look from the Akashic Records perspective, we can see that there are all of these different things that we choose prior to coming into an incarnation to experience programming and conditioning to go through all of these different things. So because of all of these things and many other factors, you are who you are right now, today, listening to this podcast episode. Who you are right now, your experience of reality is through the perspective or through the lens of the level of consciousness of where you are at. And what level of consciousness you are at is going to determine how you see the world, how you operate within the world, how you perceive the world. It provides this lens. Now, when you have a spiritual awakening, you realize, you wake up to the fact that you are not the stories that you've created because of the programming and conditioning. You realize and remember, even if just for a brief second, that you are an individualized fractal of source consciousness. You may, during your spiritual awakening, have specific experiences which remind you of that. So these are those experiences where you merge into oneness, where you experience ego annihilation for a period of time, and where you feel this interconnectedness to everyone, everything. These experiences often provide that reminder. And then, of course, we go back to real life. And when we go back to real life, we go back to our limitations. We go back to operating through this limited self, this egoic self, which is that programmed and conditioned version of you. But when we do that, now we can see that we are operating through the programs, through the conditions, through things like the limiting belief systems that we have inherited. Point of the spiritual awakening is not just that beautiful, blissful experience of merging back into oneness, but it's also to wake you up to the fact that you are who you are because of all of these different things you've been through, and you actually have a choice in respect of how you want to move forward. Do you want to deprogram, decondition, or do you want to stay as you are? Raising your vibration then, or expanding your level of awareness, raising your level of consciousness, however you want to frame it, is actually letting go of all of that stuff, recognizing I'm acting that way because of this limiting belief, and now I need to work to deconstruct that limiting belief. So it's all about letting things go. So now we've shifted the perspective from it's stuff I have to do to it's stuff I have to let go of. How do we actually raise your vibration? How do we actually do this work? So first of all, if you are new to the spiritual community and you're out there looking online, you're going to see many quick fixes, hacks, all of these different things that are supposedly going to raise your vibration. And this can be anything from specific activities to teas that can do it for you. There's anything and everything that is out there. But please understand that this work is not a quick fix. We love a quick fix. We're humans, so people are going to try and sell you quick fixes, but actually expanding your level of consciousness is not quick work. It's going to take time. That's just something that you have to accept when you're on your spiritual journey. A lot of the practices and things that are talked about can be helpful, but you have to see it as part of a much bigger picture. So I want to offer you 7 tips today that I hope you'll find helpful if you're really looking to do this work. Tip number 1 is to actually accept that there is no quick fix. Spiritual development, spiritual evolution, it takes time. It was always understood within esoteric and spiritual traditions that your spiritual development and your soul's evolution happens over lifetimes. It's only in very, very recent years where there's been this idea that it can all just be crammed into one lifetime. So the minute you accept that this is going to take time and it's going to take work, you're putting that pressure off yourself to be somewhere that isn't where you are right now. This is not to say that doing weekend workshops, going to retreats, going to regular classes for things aren't helpful. They all absolutely are. But there is no such thing as a quick fix. By accepting this, you're going to find that you are a lot kinder and a lot more patient to yourself during your spiritual journey. Tip number 2, then, once you've accepted this, start to actually really get to know yourself. Now, for some people, that is starting with the physical body. And that can be, okay, what does my unique physical body actually respond to? What does my physical body enjoy to consume? What does my physical body need in respect of movement? Really getting to know yourself. For some people, that may be that meat and meat products are no longer resonant with that body. It may be that you feel too heavy, you feel too dense on eating meat. For other people, it may be that you find meat and meat products to be very grounding. It's not that one is right and one is wrong. You've got to get to know yourself and find what works for you. Pay attention to how different foods, different fluids, anything that you're consuming, how it feels in the body, and then how it also affects you mentally, how it affects you emotionally. Really start to see yourself from this more holistic picture. And on that point, tip number 3 is try to start seeing yourself more holistically. Not only how is my body today, am I giving my body everything I need, but how is my mental health today? How is my emotional health today? What's going on with the thought processes? What's coming up emotionally? Am I giving myself space and time to actually feel the emotions that are coming up, to process them through? Am I getting carried away and getting drawn into thought patterns and thought loops that are unhealthy? Can I see what beliefs and programs I have running? And can I maybe do some work to deprogram them? So this is important self-observation work. And it's very important when you're doing self-observation work or self-reflection that you approach it with curiosity and compassion, not judgment and criticism. There is nothing worse than starting self-reflection, self-observation, and then going, oh, wow, I've got so many repressed emotions, I'm such a mess, or I've got so many programs and conditionings running through my mind, I'm never going to get on top of this. You absolutely will, and you absolutely can. Being horrible to yourself and being mean to yourself is not the way to do it. So curiosity and compassion, not judgment and criticism. Tip number 4 is another point on consumption. And I know I've said this before, and no doubt I will say it again on the podcast episode, but look at what you're consuming in all forms. So not just what you're putting into your body, but also what you're putting into your mind and into your energetic field. What information are you taking in? What books are you reading? How much social media and what type of social media are you consuming? TV programs, people that you surround yourself with. Look at the whole thing. So again, we want to go holistic with this and really feel into, does this connection, does this information, does this activity help to expand me and deepen my connection to my soul? Or does it put me into a state of contraction? Does it put me into a state of fear and anger? So pay attention to how you feel during and after certain activities that you're doing. This is not to say if you are someone who loves true crime documentaries that you can't ever watch a true crime documentary. If you're someone who loves horror movies, you can't ever watch horror movies. It's about you getting to know yourself and knowing, for example, that maybe you can watch one true crime documentary and feel completely okay and you're fascinated by it and you're really looking at the human psychology side of it, but perhaps watching 6 in a row is a bit too much for your system, and perhaps that doesn't do good things to you from a mental and emotional perspective. Perhaps you can't watch true crime documentaries at all for a while you're going through some inner processing that you're doing. And this is going to change over time. What you feel good with, what you feel aligned with, what feels supportive and expansive one day may not feel that way in 6 months' time. It's very normal for you to change. This is a practice that's worth doing, and just on a regular basis, really tuning into yourself and what feels supportive and expansive and what feels contractive. Tip number 5 is do what makes you specifically, not what somebody on the internet tells you to, or somebody on a podcast like me, but do what makes you feel more connected to the divine. What makes you feel connected to your soul? What makes you feel more connected to source consciousness itself? For some people, that is spending time in nature, getting out, being in the trees, being by the sea, whatever helps you to zoom out and feel that connection. For other people, it may be traveling. Some people feel really expansive and really connected to their soul through travel. For others, it might be going to a sacred building. What works for you and fills you up and helps you to feel that connection to divinity itself is what's right for you. So please do more of that. And point number 6 is get creative. The nature of the divine, of source consciousness, of God, however you want to term it, is creation. So by you doing something creative, you are deepening your connection to divinity. And again, this is going to be different for everybody. For some people, it'll be writing. For some, it'll be photography. For some, it'll be baking, gardening, painting. It doesn't matter what it is. It's whatever creative activity helps you feel into your connection to the creative energy and really get you into that flow state, which you experience when you do creative activities. And tip number 7 is work out what the right balance for you is. And what I mean by that is look at how much time you spend in active, how much time you spend in passive, and how much time you spend in neutral energy. And feel into, is this the right proportion for me? This is something I do with my clients in one-to-one mentorship. It's one of the first things we do is really identify how much time is being spent and does that feel like balance? And most of the time, it's not balance for people. Most of the time, we are spending too much time in active or passive and not enough time in neutral. So have a look at how much time you're spending at the moment in each of those categories. Be really honest, but be really kind and compassionate. So no judgment here. If you look at your screen time and you're horrified at how much time you're spending in passive, that's okay. We're not going to beat ourselves up. We're not going to have any judgment. But what we're going to do is we're going to look at our kind of percentage split, and then we're going to say, how can I adjust this so that I feel more balanced? Also look at your own energy. Look at when you are energetically in spring, summer, autumn, and winter, especially if you're a woman. You really need to know what you're in energetically, and it will be different each week, each month, each day. But getting to know what your energies are and then crafting your life as much as you are able to around your energetics, all of these tips are going to help you, first of all, really get to know yourself, and secondly, to have ways of remembering your divinity, remembering your connection to source consciousness. That's what they're designed to do. And that is what's going to raise your vibration, raise your level of consciousness. Now, it might be that during this process, you identify programs and conditions that you have running and that you want to do some work on deprogramming, deconditioning. That's great. And that's exactly where that work is. Now, if you do feel like you've listened to this and you know that this stuff is important and you want to work with someone one-on-one to help support you through this process, I do recommend that you check out my mentorship programs. I am in the process of doing the intake calls for those for the last intake of 2026. I'll put a link into the show notes for that if you want to take a look at that, and then perhaps arrange a free alignment call with me. Once you've applied for the mentorship, I send you some information about when we could do a call, and then we just get on a video call, have a chat, and see if it's a good fit for you, for me to help support you through doing some of this work. I do hope you found this episode helpful, and I look forward to seeing you next week for the next episode.